Thank you for joining us today for our online broadcast. We know that today is going to be a great day. To stay up to date with all things Remedy, download our app in the iTunes or Google Play Store. Once it's downloaded, take a moment to fill out the welcome card so that we can get to know you better and answer any questions that you might have. Also, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date. If you would like to partner with us financially, you have 3 options. You can give in our app under the Give tab or by texting Remedy Life to 77977 or by visiting our website at remedylifechurch.com/give. Thank you so much. Now enjoy the rest of the worship experience.
Come on, third service. Come on, you guys believe you're going to leave better than you came? You're going to leave better than you came? Yes? Come on. You guys got to sleep in, or some of you have been volunteering. That's awesome. You've all been doing some great stuff, but we're all fired up to be here in the late session, right? You guys fired up? We're going to provide some energy today. We're not the class after lunch that falls asleep. We're like the fired up group, right? You guys ready to go? Yeah, we're going to have a good time today. Hey, and I do want to thank you for being a part of our end of the year offering thing. And I just want to tell you, we're not asking you to do anything that we're not doing. We really set it as a challenge to outgive all of you. My wife gives literally 100% of her salary back into the church. And that's tough when you have a 2-income household that, you feel like, man, we should be able to do some different things and do whatever. But it's like, no, we're going to build the church. And so I just want you to know that we're not asking you to do anything that we're not doing. This is not the offering, and all this stuff that we're building is not coming to us. It's building this vision that we're going to change this city with. And so we're giving all we have also. So this is about building the vision. It's about advancing this thing. And I'm telling you, you're going to get to be a part of a great move of God because of what you're doing. Amen? It's awesome. Isn't that exciting? Woo! All right. I got a little woo. Maybe you can get a few more woos before the session's out today. But we're going to have a good time today. My challenge today, this is fun. I love this kind of a service because I have a challenge today in that we have an encounter weekend going on, right? And so we have this encounter weekend where people have been here Friday, Saturday, and now Sunday is finishing the encounter. And so it's an encounter time where we're getting healing, we're getting deliverance, we're getting restoration, like lives turned around. It's awesome. And so this is the finish to the encounter, this Sunday service. And it's also maybe for some people the first time you've ever been in our church. And so I want this to not only be the finish to the encounter, I want this to be helpful for you if this is the first time you've ever been in our church. I want you to be able to get something out of this. Or if you're a part of our church, it's not your first time, and you didn't go to the encounter, but you're a part of our church, I want you to get something out of it too. So I have 3 layers that I need to hit today, right? Pray for me, all right? Because I have to kind of hit all 3 layers in one message. But I love it because every time God seems to do it. And so I really want to bring a message today that's helpful if you're finishing your encounter, if this is your first time here, or if you've been here for a while but you just weren't part of the encounter. I want this to be a good message that's going to help everybody. Amen? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're doing this session called Trending. And we use the icons from all these apps, Netflix and Twitter and Facebook. And, we're using all these icons for all these apps because most of what's happening in most of our lives shows up on one of these apps. It's what's trending. What's trending is what's going on in our lives. Now, for some reason, some people didn't realize last time we did this, they didn't realize that we actually ordered them in a way that spells trending. So I just wanted to point that out this time. It spells trending, okay? So because we want to use all these things and just really talk about what's going on in our lives. What's happening with us? What are we dealing with? What do we have to wrestle with? What do we have to overcome? What do we have to conquer? What is going on in our lives? And when we talk about what's trending, some of the biggest things that are trending right now in people's lives really deal with issues of panic attacks, depression, kind of turning your life around, finding purpose in life. And there's all these issues that people are trying to overcome and trying to deal with in life that are trending right now because people are trying to find a turnaround. I want to turn around my marriage. I want to turn around my self-esteem. I want to turn around my emotional state. I want to turn around, my friendships. I want to turn around my finances. I want to turn around. And so I really wanted to go after the turnaround today. Everybody say turnaround. I really wanted to go after the turnaround. I wanted to see some change happen today. And so that's what we're going to hit, is we're going to talk about the turnaround. And I think it's going to hit all three of the levels that we need to hit successfully, because you're all going to find out how to have a turnaround. If you just finished your encounter, you need to really understand how to have a turnaround. If this is your first time here, I want to help you have a turnaround. If you've been here for a while, but you weren't part of the encounter or whatever, I still want to help you have a turnaround, whether it's in your finances, in your faith, in your family, in your friendships, in whatever area. I want to help you have a turnaround. Amen? So we're going to talk about how to just kind of change some things and how to have a turnaround. And it's cool because during the encounter, one of the main objects of our study in the encounter is a guy called Jacob. It's a guy in the Old Testament called Jacob. And Jacob is an interesting person in the Bible because he's a great turnaround story. He kind of starts, in not a great way, and he has a turnaround, and he becomes a patriarch. He becomes a great hero in the Bible. And so he's a great person to look at when we talk about having a turnaround, especially at an encounter or any kind of moment in our life where we're looking for a turnaround. We can look at Jacob because he has so many points in his life where he fills in the story on how to have a turnaround. Jacob, in case you don't know, I'll fill you in on a little bit of his story and show you how it connects with us right now. Jacob was a guy that was born one of two twins. They were twins, Jacob and Esau. And when they were born, and they named him Jacob and Esau, Jacob was the one that was born second in the two twins being born. And as they were born, and they named the two, Esau and Jacob, you would think it was just kind of a normal situation and a normal life growing up. But the word Jacob, the name Jacob in the Hebrew, which is when the Old Testament was written, it was written in Hebrew. The name Jacob means deceiver. It means swindler, trickster. Now, if any of you are planning on having babies, I don't recommend that you name your son Deceiver. What should we name him? I don't know. We got Dennis, we got Dave, let's go Deceiver. Like just because you're going for the right letters, don't name him Deceiver, right? Now, in our language now, Jacob doesn't mean that, but in the Hebrew at that time, that's what that meant. And so he was named Deceiver. So he grows up, and a lot of times when we tell his story, we tell the story of this guy being a deceiver because he tricks people. He's always got a game going on. He's always got something happening. And so we tell this story, but I want to tell his story a little bit different today. I want to be a little more empathetic. I want to get in here with Jacob and go, you know what, Jacob, I kind of get what you were dealing with in your life. Because as Jacob was growing up with this name, Deceiver, Jacob, in fact, there's one verse that his brother gets mad at him and says, no wonder he's named Jacob. Because he gets so mad that he's always trying to have a game and have something going on. It's like he lives up to his reputation. But how many know you don't pick your name? This name was picked for him. He was named Jacob. He didn't earn it. He didn't choose it. He was named Jacob. And you know, if you're called something enough while you're growing up, you tend to live up to that reputation, don't you? If people call you stupid all the time, you're going to kind of live up to that. If people call you, whatever the name is, you tend to live up to that reputation. He was called Jacob, not by his own choosing. The first thing we learn on how to have a turnaround is to recognize the labels that have been put on us that we do not deserve, that we have not chosen, but that have been put on us by other people. And maybe they've been put on us enough to where we are living up to that reputation. And maybe it's time to have a turnaround where you stop living up to that reputation. Now, this is not only personal, not just personal, what people have called me, the Jacob label that's been put on me. But I wonder if you have put a label on your marriage. I wonder if you have put a label on your finances. This is all we'll ever be. I'm Jacob in my finances. I wonder if you have labels in your life that you have not chosen, but other people have put on you that are not really you. You just believe that they're you. The thing that we learn from Jacob, first of all, is that labels should not define us. They should not define us. And you don't need to accept the labels that have been put on you. Some of you have labels right now that by the time we end this service, I want you to peel those labels off. I want you to peel your Jacob label off. And don't worry, we have a good vacuum cleaner. We'll clean it up. You can just throw them on the floor. We'll make sure it's all cleaned up. But you need to leave it here. Whatever label that has been put on you, that is limiting you, that is holding you back, you need to leave it here. That's one of the things we learn from Jacob, is how to not be restricted by our labels. Yeah? It's powerful to look at his story and to think about how we can have a turnaround, because Jacob had a turnaround, and he had his name changed, and he became a different person. But before he could do that, he had to identify and deal with the label that had been put on him, that he was a deceiver. And I want you to deal with that too today. Now, as he began to grow up, he also kind of acted out in some of that behavior of being a deceiver and being Jacob and not, fitting in and doing all this stuff. And that caused some issues in his family, because it caused his dad to kind of favor his brother Esau, his twin brother. If you look at Genesis chapter 25, verse 27, it says, as the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter. He was an outdoorsman. But Jacob had a quiet temperament, preferring to stay at home and play video games. Isaac loved Esau. Now listen, Isaac, the dad, loved Esau, the older brother. Isaac loved Esau because he enjoyed eating the wild game Esau brought home. But Rebekah, the mom loved Jacob. Now, this causes some drama. When you have dad who loves the older brother and mom who loves the younger brother, they're both born the same day. It's just like they're twins. It's minutes apart. But there's still some favoritism going on here. I think so many times when we talk about Jacob and we describe him as this deceiver and we describe him and all this stuff, I think we don't appreciate his drama. I think we don't appreciate how it felt to have your dad constantly favoring your brother and you're being a mama's boy. I think we don't appreciate the tension that happens there, right? Because Esau he's like hairy. It literally describes, even from birth, he was like hairy, right? He was right? It's like, he's like a lumberjack, right? He's like all hairy, and he's like a hunter, and he's a fisherman. He's like the man's man, and Jacob is like the creative, right? And he's like, look, Dad, I drew an antelope, and it's just like, Dad's like, why don't you go kill an antelope? That drawing's not going to do anything for us, right? And it's just like this tension. If you've ever felt rejected from your family, if you've ever felt rejected from people, especially a parent, especially guys from their father, girls from their father, it's an amazing effect that it has on you. And that's a situation we need to turn around. Because if you're not careful, you'll get stuck there. And if you get stuck there, it'll affect you your whole life. And it'll cause crazy motivations and crazy, actions to come out of you. It's hard when you're rejected. But Jacob teaches us how to turn around rejection. And we're going to see how he does that. But it's interesting how it manifests. Because as they got older, there came a time when Isaac, dad, was going to, release the blessing on his kids. And the blessing was important because it said how much inheritance you got. It said, what's going to be on your life, who's going to be the person in charge, this different people serving, whatever, who's going to be the big dog. And Esau being born first, even though it was only seconds first, because they were born the same time, but he was favored by his dad, was supposed to get the great blessing. Like everyone else in the family, you're gonna be the new patriarch. You're gonna be the big dog. When it came time to give that blessing, Isaac's dad was very old and he lost his sight. And he said, you know what? It's going to come time to give my blessing. And so I want to release this on my kids. And his wife, Rebecca, heard that he was going to release the blessing now. And remember, she loved Jacob, mama's boy, right? And so she went after Jacob, and she said, let's trick your father. Jacob tricked her. Let's trick your father into giving you the blessing. And so what they did is they put all this animal hair on Jacob because he was smooth-skinned. I don't know if he waxed or something, but he was smooth-skinned. And Esau was really hairy, right? Esau's the guy that's leaving all the hair in the drain and clogging up your drain. He's the one leaving it. I heard a woman say one time, I used to always want to be married to a hairy man until I found out when I got married what it did to our bathroom. It was hair everywhere. It's do we have a dog? No, it's hair everywhere. That's what Esau was like. He was hairy. And so Jacob and his mom, and they put all this animal hair on Jacob, and they go in and he pretends to be Esau so that he could get the blessing that was supposed to come to Esau. And so Jacob, he goes, you sound like Jacob, Isaac, the dad. He goes, you sound like Jacob, but you feel like Esau. And he even said, and I think this is really funny, he said, you smell like Esau. And I'm thinking, they put all this goat hair and stuff on him. Is that what Esau smelled like? I don't think this guy's going to have a good future in a cologne line, or smell like Esau. It's woof. I don't know what you smell like. So Isaac, the dad, he says, okay, this must be Esau. And he gives him the blessing. And he says, you're going to be the patriarch. You're going to be the one that is getting the greater blessing. And he gives him this whole blessing. And so Jacob steals the blessing from Esau, the firstborn, in order to overcome everything that he's experiencing. Now, a lot of people slight him for this. But you know what? When I look at this situation, I kind of get it. Because you know what it's like when you feel rejected and you try to become something you're not in order to be accepted. He was becoming Esau in order to be accepted by someone who was rejecting him. Have you ever tried to be something that you're not in order to get the approval of someone who is rejecting you? And isn't it ridiculous how you try to be something you're not in order to get the blessing of someone who really doesn't care in the first place? And some of you need to stop. You need to have a turnaround right now that simply says, I'm going to stop trying to be what I'm not to get a blessing from someone that isn't really caring about me anyway. If they bless who you're not, they're not blessing you. You need to find yourself and be blessed in yourself. Stop trying to be Esau. Be Jacob, Jacob. Stop trying to be something you're not. Stop trying to put on all this stuff and go, do you like me now? Am I acceptable to you now? Do you approve of me now? Do you approve? Like, smell me now. Do you approve of me now? Do I get your endorsement now? Stop trying to be Esau. Yes? And see, that's the turnaround that you get when you start understanding, I don't have to live up to someone's expectations on what they think I should be. I need to be me. And if you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. But if you like me for someone who I'm not, you're not liking me anyway. Right? And so we learn this from Jacob, how he went through this whole experience of trying to be something he wasn't to try to get something that he never got anyway. Now, this was a pivotal moment for him. And it was crazy because as he stole the blessing from his brother, and his brother came in and freaked out. His brother came in and was like, what happened? Like, what's going on? And dad's like, I gave the blessing to your brother. And he's freaking out. Like, don't you have a blessing for me? It's like this whole thing. Well, after Esau found out that he stole the blessing, he was mad. And in 148 characters, he tweeted, I'm going to kill that dude. Because that was trending with him. I'm going to kill that. And he said, this is not an empty threat. He was going to kill his brother because he stole the birthright. He stole the blessing. And so Jacob hears about it, and he takes off, man. He runs. Get out of Dodge. He runs, and he goes to his family's house, his relative's house far away, so he could let Esau cool down because he doesn't want to get killed. Most people don't, right? It's kind of a good choice. So he goes and he stays at his relative's house, Laban, and Laban's got this whole ranch and everything, and so he goes, I could stay with him, I could work with him and start this new life. Now, Laban has a couple of daughters. I don't know why every farmer's story has daughters. Like, you can talk about jokes and like stories like farmer had a daughter. It's like, I don't know why that always happens, but Laban's got a couple of daughters. That worked very well in the other services. I don't know why that didn't work good in this service. And he's got an older daughter named Leah. And Leah, it's a beautiful name, but is not described as a beautiful girl. She's described as a woman who is, not easy on the eye. And it's very, unfortunate that she's described this way, but she's not desirable. And she's the older daughter, and they haven't been able to marry her off and all this stuff. And so she's just like, not good looking. But he has a younger daughter. And his younger daughter, Rachel, she's the captain of the cheerleading squad, most popular, best looking, prom queen. She's got it all together. She's like my wife. Yes. And so Jacob is like, man, he's like Uncle Rico. I found my soulmate. I'm about to sit in the hot tub with my soulmate. He was like, this is, I feel a witness. this girl's got it going on. And so he wants to marry her. So he goes to Laban. He's like, man, your daughter, Rachel, man, that name just rolls off my tongue. I want to marry her. And so Laban says, okay, you can marry her, but you're going to have to work 7 years in order to earn the right to marry her. And he says, worth it. So he works 7 years. And he's going, man, I can't wait to marry that cheerleader. I can't wait to marry her. She's just like, woo, Rachel. It's like, honey. And so he works the 7 years. And he says, Laban, it's time. And so, okay, we're going to have a wedding. They throw this huge party and this huge wedding, and all this stuff is going on. It's just great, and it's exciting. And I don't know, it doesn't say it in the text, but I think Laban maybe have gotten Jacob a little drunk or something. It's a wedding, I mean. But he doesn't totally know the events of the night, and he's a little confused and all this stuff. And it's interesting what happens after the wedding. Look in Genesis 29, verse 25. It says, but when Jacob woke up in the morning, it was Leah. What have you done to me? Jacob raged at Laban. I worked 7 years for Rachel. Why have you tricked me? Isn't it funny when the trickster gets tricked? Isn't it funny when the schemer gets schemed? Isn't it funny when the chickens come home to roost, or whatever that's, isn't it funny when like you start to reap what you've been sowing? He got tricked. I've always thought, and I may do this, I've always thought it would be good, a good book to write would be like, when you marry Rachel but you wake up to Leah. When life doesn't turn out like you planned. When you had expectations and your expectations were disappointed. When you thought things were going to work out one way and you're going, why is my life here right now? When you marry Rachel but you wake up to Leah. It's interesting what happens in life when you experience disappointment and frustration, and you go, I didn't think my life would be here right now. I didn't think I would be here. Like, this is not what I expected. When you marry Rachel, but you wake up to Leah. It's an amazing thing that happens when you have to confront the disappointments of life. This is something Jacob, the turnaround artist, teaches us, because he woke up to that moment. Now, it's interesting, too, because he wakes up to that moment, and he could be easily just, like, off the handle. Like, I can't believe this. I got swindled. I'm just, but he could have been so furious and just gone off the rails. But you know what he does? He goes to Laban, and he goes, how could you trick me like this? You know I'm in love with Rachel. And Laban, the dad, says, okay. He says, we had to marry our oldest daughter first because that's our culture. You can still marry Rachel, but you got to give me another 7 years worth of labor. And guess what Jacob says? Worth it. She's worth it. So he allowed him to get married, and he worked for another 7 years in order to pay that debt. Isn't that crazy? It's amazing. Jacob loved Rachel. In fact, if you look at the story, and when Jacob becomes the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, it was Rachel that birthed Joseph. And you guys know Joseph was the one that Jacob favored. That's why he gave him the multicolored coat. and he's the one that became the deliverer. You remember, and the whole cartoons that you see with him freeing them from Egypt or whatever, delivering them to Egypt and all that stuff. He became the second in command. He was the favored one. The reason that Jacob loved Joseph so much is because Rachel gave birth to him. It was the wife that he loved giving birth to this favored son. So here he is, like, having to work another 7 years, and he says, worth it, I'll do it. So now he gets married. They have this whole entourage. He works the next 7 years. He's got all these goats and sheep and, I don't know, ducks. I don't know what he's got. He's got a whole thing. And he goes, you know what? I want to go home to my family. I want to see my brother Esau, see if he's cooled down. And so he heads home. And this whole parade is heading home to go see his family. And he sends them all in front of him. And he sends them all out there. And he says, I need some time by myself. He's an introvert. I need some time by myself. So they all go ahead of him. And he stays in this place. And he tries to fall asleep. And this guy shows up and starts wrestling with him. And he starts wrestling, and as he's wrestling, Jacob begins to realize, I'm not wrestling with a man. I'm wrestling with God. I'm wrestling with God. And so in order to understand the turnaround again, we have to understand, sometimes you think you're wrestling with life and you're really wrestling with God. That's one thing Jacob teaches us. Sometimes you think it's trouble that you're dealing with, and what really you're dealing with is God's trying to change your character. He's trying to change you. He's trying to develop you. He's trying to get something in you. And so you're not really wrestling with life, you're wrestling with God. Why is that important? Because when Jacob realized he was wrestling with God, it was like an angel of the Lord or whatever, and he's wrestling with him, the angel says, the daylight's coming. All right, we need to quit. Let me go. And Jacob says something very powerful. He says, I'm not letting go until you bless me. Now, when you start to understand that your process may not be the devil, it may not be life coming against you, it may not be all these things. When you start to understand that maybe what I'm wrestling with is God and he's trying to do something in me, you stop praying, God, get me out of this. And you start praying, God, get me the blessing that's in this. Get me the blessing that's in this. Yes? Now, this is important. I want you to see this. I want you to see this, because this statement that he makes, when he says, I'm not letting go until you bless me. See, now this tells me everything about Jacob, because every part of the story that I've told you so far reveals something very powerful. No matter what season Jacob was in, he knew how to get the blessing. When his father rejected him and the blessing was supposed to go to Esau, he knew how to get the blessing. When Laban lied and cheated him and gave him Leah, he knew how to get the blessing of Rachel. When he was struggling with life in this moment, and everyone else would go, I'm done, get me out of here. He goes, no, I know how to get the blessing. If we're going to have a turnaround, guys, you have to know in every season, no matter what you go through, you have to get the blessing. Don't you go through that for nothing. Don't let your blood, sweat, and tears be for naught. Don't just go through it and say, whew, I survived. No, go through it and go, I got the blessing. See, some of you are trying to pray your way out of something, and God is going, no, you're not ready to go because you haven't gotten the blessing yet. And you're looking at this thing and you're going, man, when is this ever going to turn around? When you get the blessing. Stop looking for it to turn around. Stop looking for it to change and start looking for the blessing. Be like Jacob. Sorry. Got a little fired up for a minute. Be like Jacob. Say, no matter what's going on, I'm not an escape artist. I'm not just trying to get out of something. I want the blessing that's hidden in this thing. And this is a word for many of you in this room right now, to turn your situation around. Stop trying to get out and start trying to get the blessing. Maybe you're not wrestling with a marriage. Maybe you're not wrestling with finances. Maybe you're not wrestling with life. Maybe you're not wrestling with whatever, anger, issues, character. Maybe you're wrestling with God. And he's trying to get something out of you and trying to get the blessing in you. And maybe if you stop praying, get me out of this, and start praying, God, I'm not giving up until you bless me. Maybe your whole situation will begin to change. And maybe you can walk out of this place more blessed than you came in. Because you start to go, I did not go through all of that empty-handed. I'm coming out of this blessed. And I want to speak that over every single one of you and every single person watching online. You're coming out of this season blessed. I don't care what the challenges have been. I don't care what, you're coming out blessed because you're going to be like Jacob. And you're going to know how to get blessing out of every single season. Now, we'll close with this. The amazing thing about Jacob's life is that God changed his name. And he changed his name from Jacob to Israel. And by changing his name, he was giving birth to a whole new movement. You know, he went from cheater, swindler, to prince with God. I mean, it's an amazing transformation that happened. But when we talk about God, we don't talk about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. We talk about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And sometimes people wonder, why isn't it Abraham, Isaac, and Israel? Because Jacob became Israel. Why isn't it his new name? Why is it his old name? And this is where I think we don't appreciate Jacob enough. Because we're like, oh, he stole his brother's birthright. Oh, he tricked people. Oh, he did all this stuff. But I think there's something that God appreciates about a person that knows how to find a blessing in a hard season. That knows how to find the true treasure buried in the field. I think there's something that God appreciates about a man after his own heart, like David, who was also a cheater, who was also a murderer, who is also all these other things. I think there's something that God appreciates in us when we know how to find the blessing in a hard season. And right now, your turnaround is about to happen because you're about to come into a new season, because you're going to learn how to find the blessing just like Jacob in every season of your life. Amen? Amen. Let's all stand up. You guys get this today? I hope you got this because, number one, I don't want you to pretend anymore to try to get a blessing that's not yours. I want you to live for the blessing that really is on your life. I don't want you to be frustrated by the labels that other people have put on you anymore. I want you to begin to take those labels off. You know, I don't want you trying to live a life that God hasn't designed for you. I want you to live your life that He has designed for you. And the way that you're going to live that is you're going to find the blessing. Maybe the very thing that you're trying to run from is holding the blessing that God is trying to get to you. And if you'll stop trying to get out of the season and just get the blessing that He's trying to get to you, this whole thing is going to make a lot more sense. Come on, Jacob. Let's find the blessing. Amen?
Thank you for joining us today. If you need prayer, we would love to pray for you. Just fill out a prayer request in the Remedy Life Church app under the Connect tab. Also, if you would like to partner with us financially, you can do so online by visiting remedylifechurch.com/give or under the Give tab in the app. Have a great week.